In this video I'll be painting Lucius Mattheson, the dapper master from the guild in Neverborn in Malifaux. I start with a white primer as I plan on using several bright colors for his fashionable facade, and they work better with a white primer. His base will be a tiled floor made with green stuff. Starting off with my base coats, I immediately go back on my claim of using bright colors by painting his cape with a dark gray. This is done for two reasons. First, I plan on building the cape up from a deep purple, so I started really dark to accentuate the color saturation. And the second part is that it'll be difficult to later paint behind his back as I build up the layers of color, so making sure everything behind him looks black, it will appear as shadow and cover any white primer I might miss. For his pants, gloves, and hair, I lay down a mid-gray. These areas will be built up towards white, leaving some gray behind for wrinkles and shadows. His coat I start with a solid red. Rather than work in an orange as I brighten it up, I will instead move it towards pink as I think that'll give him a more decadent look versus the orange, which would look more energetic. The mask, shoulders, and smaller detailing will be in gold, so I'm using a red leather as my base coat in these areas. Now that I've got the base coats done, I'll move on to painting the cape. My color scheme for the cape is as follows. I use a lot of glazing because as a cape it should transition its appearance like fabric and have very few sharp changes in colors. By keeping my paints watered down and building them up in layers, the transition will be smooth and flow seamlessly between purple and red. The harsher transitions are around the shoulders where the cloth bunches up, thus there's more red up there. Finally, to unify the colors better, I use a purple wash over the whole of the cape. Here's the pants, hair, and gloves color scheme. This is a straightforward palette as the cleaned white will say a lot about Lucius's cleanliness. Similar to the cape, I work with some very watered down paints to create a smooth transition. This is more so for the pants as there are large flat surface areas, where the gloves and hair have some strong recessed areas, so a careful transition isn't as necessary. In the last step, I don't use very much straight white in these areas. I just dab a bit on the knuckles, the tips of the hair, and a couple ridges to give them a little pop where it's needed. Something I didn't properly base early on are some of the leather features on the model, such as his satchel and belt. I hit those areas with a brown, then layered a lighter brown after that. Finishing up the satchel and belt, I use a little bit of flesh to highlight the edges. Now it's time to get the gold. It's at this point that I decided to add some of the brown to Lucius's mask since it's meant to be an actual metallic surface and I wanted a bit more contrast. Using a watered down brown, I layer it on the outer edges of each side of the mask, then go over it again with the same red leather I used near the center of the mask. Starting with the red leather, we slowly work our way up to brighter tones. The muted yellow could be mixed with the red leather or glazed on top of it to begin the transition. Then we apply the yellow by itself, just slightly watered down. Not quite a glaze, but not straight paint to model. After building that up, we mix a bit of yellow with some of the white to get our highlight, and we want to apply that paint straight on, minimal thinning, as light paints are hard to apply consistently, and this is where we're getting the golden shine, so it should have a sharp contrast with the colors around it. Depending on the surface, you could do some straight white highlights. In this case, I did a slight bit of it following the ridge down his forehead to his nose, then along his brows. Now rather than finish painting the model, I deviated and started working on the base, or rather rethinking the base. It's a fine tiled floor, but I started to find it unfit for a master such as Lucius, so I came up with an idea. I made some paper scripture covered in writing and decided to make a wall of bureaucratic red tape in front of Lucius, as legal manipulation is his primary weapon. I shaped the strips, glued them to the base, and then used some watered down glue to hold their shape. And we're done. What about the coat, you might be wondering? Well, I'm wondering as well. I can't find the video of me painting it anywhere, but I don't think it's needed. It's a pretty simple color scheme, and it's painted in a similar style as the pants. So unfortunately, I can't show you the final bit as it seems I've lost my paperwork, and I need to file for another permit from the guild. Hopefully I'll hear back from them within the year.